From Yule to New Year. A continuation of Old Christmas by Washington Irving. Created by Jake Hotham. Narrated by Owen Spencer. Chapter 1. Boxing Day Revels and Rural Sports. The dawn of Boxing Day broke upon Bracebridge Hall with a sky veiled in soft gray, from which descended a gentle flurry of snowflakes, each one a delicate emissary of winter's lingering embrace. The frost had etched intricate patterns upon the casement windows of my chamber, resembling the fine lacework of some antique ruff, and as I gazed out upon the whitened lawns and the distant spire of the village church piercing the mist like a sentinel of old, I felt anew the enchantment that these holiday customs cast over the soul. The hall below was already astir with the sounds of preparation, the servants moving with that brisk efficiency born of long habit, and the air redolent with the scents of fresh-baked bread and simmering spices, remnants of the Christmas bounty now repurposed for the day's charitable endeavors. Descending the grand staircase, its oaken banisters polished to a gleam by generations of hands, I encountered the squire in the great hall, his robust figure clad in a hunting coat of deep green velvet, a garment that bespoke both his station and his unyielding adherence to the fashions of his youth. He was directing the assembly of boxes, sturdy wooden chests, and neatly tied parcels filled with the tokens of his benevolence, warm scarves knitted by the village dames, bolts of sturdy woolen cloth, jars of preserved fruits from the hall's own orchards, and for each recipient, a shining silver coin or two, stamped with the profile of the reigning monarch as a reminder of the ties that bound subject to sovereign. "Ah, my good friend," quoth the squire, his eyes twinkling with that genial light which seemed ever to illuminate his countenance during these festive days, "you come at the very moment of our annual almsgiving. 'Tis a custom as old as the hills, derived from the church boxes of yore, wherein the faithful deposited their offerings for the poor on St. Stephen's Day. In my grandfather's time, the hall would be thronged from dawn till dusk with tenants and laborers, each receiving a dole of bread, cheese, and ale, with perhaps a halfpenny for the bairns. Modern economy may whisper of extravagance, but I say, what is Christmas without charity? It warms the giver's heart as surely as the receiver's hearth. Master Simon, ever the lively adjunct to the squire's enterprises, was flitting about like a merry sprite, his parrot-like nose flushed with the cold air that seeped through the doors, tying gay ribbons upon the parcels and exchanging jests with the housemaids. One comely lass, with cheeks as red as holly berries, received a fine linen apron, and in her gratitude curtsied so deeply that her cap nearly tumbled off, provoking Master Simon to quip, "There, my girl, 'tis a garment fit for a queen of the kitchen. Wear it in health, and may it shield thee from many a splash of gravy." The old porter, a venerable figure with a beard as white as the snow outside, was presented with a new greatcoat lined with fur, which he donned at once, declaring in his gruff voice, "Bless ye, squire, 'twill keep out the keenest blast, like the walls of the hall itself." The housekeeper, a matronly dame whose silver hair peeped from beneath her mob cap, accepted a bolt of cambric with tears glistening in her eyes, recalling how the squire's late mother had bestowed similar gifts in years long past, when the hall echoed with the laughter of a larger family circle. Frank Bracebridge, my constant companion in these observations, drew me aside to a window embrasure, where we could overlook the proceedings without intrusion. "You see here the true spirit of the season," said he, in his thoughtful manner, "not mere dole, but a knitting of bonds between high and low. My father holds that charity on Boxing Day is as essential as the Yule log on Christmas Eve. It dispels the shadows of inequality and fosters that mutual goodwill which is the bedrock of rural England." The young Oxonian, fresh from his collegiate haunts, added a scholarly note, quoting from an old chronicle he had perused in the squire's library. "In the days of good Queen Bess, 'Twas the custom to open the alms boxes on this feast of St. Stephen, distributing to the needy that they might share in the joy of the Nativity. And mark you, sir, how the martyrs' deeds of mercy are thus emulated, turning alms into a sacrament of fellowship. No sooner were the indoor distributions concluded than the squire, clapping his hands with enthusiasm, proposed a hunt to invigorate the blood and honor the day's traditions. "What say you, lads?" cried he, his voice booming through the hall like a huntsman's horn. "The fox awaits in his covert, and the hounds are eager." 'Tis the very essence of Boxing Day sport, handed down from the days when knights chased the boar through these self-same woods. The kennels were summoned, and out poured a pack of sleek foxhounds, their coats glossy and tails wagging in anticipation, baying a chorus that stirred the soul with echoes of ancient chases. We mounted in the courtyard, the snow crunching beneath the horses' hooves like brittle sugar, the air sharp and exhilarating. The squire led upon his bay gelding, a beast of noble lineage named Reynard after the wily fox of fable. Master Simon followed on a sprightly cob that pranced sideways, mirroring its rider's whimsical nature. The officer, resplendent in a scarlet coat that flashed against the white landscape, rode a charger borrowed from the stables, and I, upon a steady mare of gentle disposition, felt the thrill of the pursuit course through my veins. Away we rode, the flakes swirling about us like confetti from some celestial celebration, over fields where the hedgerows stood stark and frosted, and through woods where the bare branches arched overhead like the vaulted aisles of a Gothic cathedral. The fox was soon sighted, a russet streak darting across the open meadow, and the hounds gave tongue in full cry, their voices blending in a harmonious tumult that seemed the very music of the wild. Over hedge and stile we leaped, the squire hallooing with the vigor of a man reborn, quoting snatches from old hunting ballads preserved in his memory. Tally-ho! The fox is away, slash through brake and through briar we follow today. Slash with horn and with hound we chase him amain, slash o'er hill and o'er dale, through snow and through rain. Master Simon, ever the jester, compared the chase to the pursuits of love, shouting as we galloped, "See how the vixen leads us a merry dance, just as a fair maid teases her suitors. But we'll have her yet, or my name's not Simon Bracebridge." The hunt wove us through the estate's broad acres and into neighboring lands, where villagers turned out from their cottages to watch, cheering and waving caps as we thundered by. One old dame, wrapped in a shawl against the cold, called out blessings upon the squire, recalling how in her youth such hunts had been the highlight of the holiday season. At length, after a chase that tested both horse and rider, the fox was run to earth in a thicket near the river, and we returned triumphant, our cheeks glowing with exertion, our spirits elevated by the primal joy of the sport. The hall welcomed us with open arms, the great doors flung wide, and within, a collation awaited. The remnants of Christmas pies, cold joints of beef and ham, tankards of mulled ale steaming with cloves and cinnamon, and loaves of fresh bread slathered with golden butter. The servants, now in possession of their boxes, joined in the toasts, raising their mugs to the squire's health, and there ensued a general air of contentment that warmed the soul as surely as the roaring fire warmed the body. In the afternoon, despite the persistent snow, the squire organized outdoor games upon the lawn, where a troop of village lads, their breaths forming misty clouds, engaged in cudgel play and wrestling matches, the victors rewarded with prizes of gingerbread nuts and tankards of ale. For those of gentler inclination, indoors there were card games, whist and loo played at tables drawn near the fire, where the rompish blue-eyed girl excelled at snap, her laughter pealing like bells as she claimed her forfeits. Julia, with her graceful demeanor, partnered the officer in a game of cribbage, their eyes meeting over the cards in glances that bespoke a deepening affection. As evening drew on, with the snow deepening outside and the candles lit against the gathering dusk, stories were told by the fireside. The parson, ensconced in his high-backed chair, recounted the martyrdom of St. Stephen with solemn gravity, drawing from the Acts of the Apostles and the homilies of St. Augustine, wherein he likened the saints stoning to the trials of faith in these modern times. Master Simon, not to be outdone, countered with a humorous anecdote of a parsimonious vicar who, on Boxing Day, boxed his own shadow for fear of giving alms to a beggar, provoking such gales of laughter that the squire slapped his knee in delight. The squire himself contributed a tale from his youth, of a great hunt on a Boxing Day long past, when the snow lay deep, and the fox led them across frozen streams, nearly to the borders of the county. "Ah, those were days of true sport," sighed he, his eyes distant with reminiscence, when men rode without fear of railroads or enclosures spoiling the land. But enough of tales, let us drink to St. Stephen and to charity, that binds us all in one great family. Thus passed Boxing Day, a harmonious blend of charity, sport, and simple joys, reminding me how these old customs, like the ivy clinging to the hall's ancient walls, entwined the hearts of all who dwelt within. Chapter 2. The intervening days of mirth, custom, and quiet reflection. The days succeeding Boxing Day unfolded like the pages of some illuminated manuscript, each one illuminated with its own peculiar observances, revived from the annals of antiquity by the squire's unswerving devotion to tradition. On the feast of the Holy Innocents, we awoke to a world profoundly transformed by a heavier fall of snow during the night, the hall isolated amidst a sea of white, its chimneys sending up plumes of smoke that curled lazily against the leaden sky like incense from a rural altar. The squire, gazing out upon this wintry vista from the breakfast parlor, declared it a day ordained for indoor revels, lest the elements conspire to dampen our spirits. "In olden times," quoth he, stirring his porridge with a silver spoon engraved with the family crest, "this feast commemorated the slaughtered babes of Bethlehem, and 'twas the custom to indulge in childlike games, inverting the order of things so that the young might rule the old. Master Simon, as our perpetual lord of misrule, shall devise amusements to suit the occasion." Master Simon, accepting the charge with his customary alacrity, his face alight with mischief beneath his frost-bitten nose, orchestrated a series of parlor games that kept the company in continual glee from morn till eve. First came hot cockles, a pastime of boisterous antiquity wherein one player, blindfolded and kneeling with hands behind, endured light blows from the others, guessing the assailant amidst shrieks of laughter and feigned indignation. The young officer proved remarkably adept, his military precision allowing him to discern the touch of Julia's gentle hand from the romp's more vigorous slap, leading to forfeits of kisses that set cheeks a-blushing, and the squire chuckling indulgently. "Well played, lad," cried he. "'Tis like the tourneys of old, where knights vied for a lady's favor with lance and shield." This gave way to Shoe the Wild Mare, a rowdy diversion involving a balanced beam upon which players attempted to shoe an imaginary steed with hammers, often tumbling in comical heaps upon the rush-strewn floor. The Oxonian, with his scholarly poise, attempted it with gravity, only to sprawl in a tangle of limbs, provoking Master Simon to quip, "There goes Aristotle shoeing Pegasus, mind thy philosophy doesn't bruise thy dignity." The blue-eyed romp, her flaxen curls disheveled and her frock askew, excelled at this, leaping nimbly and declaring it finer than any dance at boarding school. Even the parson was persuaded to join, his grizzled wig slipping sideways as he balanced precariously, quoting Latin tags upon the instability of fortune. "Sic transit gloria mundi," thus passes worldly glory, or in this case, worldly balance. The solemn interlude came with the parson's discourse on the holy innocents, delivered from his oaken chair by the fire, where he drew from the Gospel of Matthew and the writings of St. Chrysostom, likening the martyred children to the innocents of our own day oppressed by poverty or war. Let us remember, intoned he, his voice resonant with clerical authority, that in these games of inversion we but mimic the divine order, where the meek shall inherit the earth. This gravity yielded to lighter fare as the old harper was summoned, his fingers coaxing from the strings carols of the season, including a quaint ditty from Herrick's Hesperides. Wash your hands, or else the fire slash will not tend to your desire. Slash unwashed hands, ye maidens, no, slash dead the fire, though ye blow. The company joined in chorus, their voices blending in harmonious warmth against the howling wind outside. On the morrow, the snow abating to a mere dusting, we ventured forth for the ceremony of wassailing the orchards, a rite the squire held sacred for ensuring the fruitfulness of the coming year, traced back to Saxon times, when the health of the trees was toasted to ward off barrenness. Armed with bowls of lamb's wool, that frothy elixir of heated ale, roasted crab apples, nutmeg, and sugar, we trooped to the ancient apple grove behind the hall. The branches bowed under their icy burden like venerable sages in contemplation. The villagers had been summoned, their ruddy faces alight with anticipation, bearing guns, horns, and pots of cider. The squire led the procession, his breath forming misty clouds as he intoned the traditional chant, "Health to thee, good apple tree, slash well to bear pocketfuls, hatfuls, slash peckfuls, bushel bagfuls. Slash for apples and pears, with the right good corn, slash come in plenty to everyone." A volley of shots rang out to scare away evil spirits, the reports echoing across the fields like thunderclaps, and we poured libations at the roots of the oldest tree, a gnarled patriarch said to have been planted in the days of Charles Roman II. Master Simon, with a flourish, scattered crumbs for the robins, declaring them the guardians of the grove, while the romp climbed a low branch to hang ribbons, her laughter mingling with the birds' winter song. The parson, though dubious of its pagan origins, citing Druidic precedents from Bede's histories, conceded it a harmless emblem of providence, quoting from the Psalms, "The earth bringeth forth her increase, and God, even our own God, shall give us his blessing." Evenings during these intervening days were devoted to tales and music, the hall's great fireplace casting flickering shadows that danced upon the paneled walls like specters from the past. Frank Bracebridge shared stories of Yuletide in the New World, where colonists wassailed their cider orchards in mimicry of English ways, blending old customs with the rugged spirit of the frontier. The squire, delving into his treasured library, read extracts from Tusser's 500 Points of Good Husbandry, lamenting how the march of progress enclosures, factories, and steam engines had eroded these rural rights, turning the peasantry from hardy yeomen into discontented laborers. "In my boyhood," sighed he, "every farmstead kept these traditions alive. Now they fade like morning mist before the sun of reform." One memorable night, a band of mummers arrived unbidden at the hall's doors, rustic players from the village, clad in tattered costumes of motley and paper crowns, their faces blackened with soot or masked with grotesque visages fashioned from turnips and cloth. They enacted the timeless combat of St. George and the Dragon, with wooden swords clashing and much buffoonery. The saint, portrayed by a lanky lad with a voice like a corncrake, declaiming, "Here come I, St. George, from Britain did I spring, slash I'll fight the dragon bold, my wonders to begin." The dragon, a burly fellow draped in green scales of painted canvas, roared comically and fell with exaggerated throws, provoking the company to applause and showers of coins. The squire, delighted, rewarded them with ale and mince pies, declaring it a survival from medieval miracle plays, as described in the Chronicles of Froissart. Amid these diversions, the affections within the household deepened like the snowdrifts outside. The officer and Julia exchanged whispers by the fireside, their hands brushing in the glow of the embers, while Master Simon flirted outrageously with the visiting widow, a lady of mature charms who had arrived in her curricle through the slushy lanes, her wit as sharp as his own. They bantered over a game of piquet, he vowing eternal devotion, she retorting with quotes from Congreve's comedies. The blue-eyed romp, meanwhile, organized an impromptu snowball skirmish in the courtyard, wherein the gentlemen were soundly routed by the ladies' accurate volleys, the air filled with shrieks and flying missiles that melted harmlessly upon cloaks and caps. Thus passed the intervening days, a rich tapestry woven from threads of mirth, custom, and quiet reflection, each one adding to the spell of the season that bound us all in its gentle thrall. The hall seemed a sanctuary against the world's encroachments, where time itself paused to revel in the joys of yore. Chapter 3. Twelfth Night Extravaganza and the Mask of Folly. Twelfth Night, the eve of Epiphany, arrived with a partial thaw that turned the snow to a glistening slush underfoot, the air mild yet crisp, as if nature herself conspired to prolong the holiday's enchantment. The squire proclaimed it the grand climax of the Christmas Jubilee, a night for masking, feasting, and the merry inversion of orders, when folly might reign supreme and the barriers of rank dissolve in universal glee. Preparations had been underway for days, the kitchen's a hive of activity, with cooks laboring over a colossal 12th cake studded with candied fruits, almonds, and spices, its surface iced in regal white and adorned with sugar figures of kings and queens. Within, hidden a bean and a pea to determine the sovereigns of the evening's revels. The banquet commenced at dusk in the great hall, the tables extended to their full length, and laden with a profusion that rivaled the splendor of Christmas dinner itself. The slicing was performed with pomp, the squire wielding the knife like a ceremonial sword, and portions distributed with eager anticipation. Fortune, that capricious dame, smiled upon the Oxonian as king, the bean discovered in his slice amidst exclamations of delight, and upon the blue-eyed romp as queen, the pea revealed in hers with a squeal of triumph. They were enthroned upon improvised daises of cushioned chairs, crowned with paper diadems adorned with tinsel, and invested with scepters fashioned from holly branches. "Hail to King and Queen of Misrule!" cried Master Simon, bowing low with mock solemnity. "Command us, your loyal subjects, in whims and follies, for tonight order is banished and caprice holds court." The royal pair issued decrees with whimsical authority, forfeits of songs from the shy, dances from the sedate, and kisses from the reluctant, all executed with laughter and good humor. The officer was commanded to serenade Julia with a ballad of chivalry, his voice rich and true as he sang from an old tome. "My lady fair, with eyes so bright, slash thou art my star in winter's night." Julia blushed becomingly, her bouquet of hothouse flowers trembling in her hand, while the squire nodded approval, whispering to me, "There's a match in the making, mark my words. Young love blooms even in the depth of winter." Master Simon, in his element as the architect of the evening's masque, had rallied the younger folk to don antique finery rummaged from the hall's vast wardrobe's velvets moth-eaten, but grand, rough starched to stiffness, and cloaks embroidered with faded heraldry. The Oxonian portrayed a medieval knight-errant, his armor improvised from tin pans and cardboard, Julia his damsel in a gown of flowing silk, the officer a bold pirate captain, with a tricorn hat and wooden sword, and the romp a saucy fairy queen, her wings crafted from gauze and wire, fluttering as she capered. They enacted a burlesque of courtly love, the dialogues improvised from fragments of Spenser and Malory, with the knight questing for a grail that turned out to be a tankard of ale, provoking gales of laughter from the audience. Dancing ensued, a whirlwind medley of pavanes, galliards, and rustic reels, the harper's fingers flying over the strings as feet stamped upon the oaken floor in rhythmic joy. The squire led off with the dame of the hall, his steps ponderous yet hearty, recalling the balls of his youth at county assemblies. Master Simon partnered the widow, their rigadoon a blend of antique grace and modern flirtation, he whispering compliments that drew her fan to her face in feigned modesty. Games followed in rapid succession. Bob Apple, where fruits dangled tantalizingly from strings, snapped at by eager mouths amid dodges and misses, and a renewed bout of Snapdragon, the blue flames leaping from the brandy-soaked raisins, fingers singeing and voices crying out in mock alarm as prizes were snatched. Stories and songs interspersed the revels. The parson, warming to the theme of Epiphany, discoursed on the journey of the Magi, citing the commentaries of Origen and Tertullian, wherein the Star of Bethlehem symbolized divine guidance through life's tempests. The squire, not to be outlearned, recounted ancient Epiphany customs from his reading, regretting the loss of boy bishops who once preached mock sermons in cathedrals, as recorded in the annals of the church. Master Simon, with a sparkle in his eye, sang a chanson from an old black-letter book. The king drinks and the queen drinks, slash and all the court drinks merrily. Slash with wassail and carol, we banish all sorrow, slash and welcome the year with glee. As midnight approached, the wassail bowls passed round once more, toasts ringing out to health, prosperity, and the enduring spirit of old England. The night closed in a crescendo of uproar, the hall echoing with the final strains of song and the peals of laughter, leaving hearts full and spirits exalted. Twelfth Night had woven its magic, a fitting pinnacle to the season's joys. Chapter 4, New Year's Eve. Vigils, superstitions, and midnight merriment. New Year's Eve dawned with a crisp frost that etched filigree upon every pane, the hall aglow with the soft light of candles, as preparations mounted for the grand transition from old year to new. The squire, influenced by distant Scottish kin through his mother's line, blended the hearty customs of English observance with the robust traditions of Hogmanay, a night of vigilant watch, superstitious rites, and unrestrained jollity, wherein the past was bid farewell, and the future welcomed with open arms and brimming cups. The day commenced with a thorough cleaning of the house, a superstition as old as the hills, to sweep away the ills of the departing year and make way for fresh fortunes. The servants, under the housekeeper's stern eye, polished every surface, emptied ashes from the grates, and discarded rags and scraps, lest any remnant of old sorrow cling to the thresholds. In ancient times, explained the squire as we assisted in minor tasks, his sleeves rolled up like a yeoman's, 'twas believed that a clean hearth invited good luck, and no wise householder would suffer dust or disorder to greet the new year. My grandmother, God rest her, would not permit a single cobweb to remain, quoting from an old rhyme, "Sweep the old year out the door, slash lest misfortune come once more." Master Simon, wielding a broom with theatrical flourishes, jested that he was sweeping away his bachelorhood, drawing a playful rebuke from the widow, who had arrived early to partake in the preparations, her presence adding a spark of vivacity to the proceedings. Afternoon brought a stream of visitors, neighbors arriving in sleighs or on foot, their cheeks nipped red by the cold, bearing gifts of shortbread, black bun, that rich fruit cake symbolizing abundance, and bottles of fine whiskey, exchanged with wishes for a good new year. The drawing-room became a hub of sociable intercourse, where cards were dealt for games of whist, and charades enacted with much guessing and laughter. The romp organized a lottery of fortunes, slips of paper drawn from a hat foretelling humorous destinies. The officer drew a conquest in love, provoking knowing glances toward Julia. The parson, a discovery in antiquity, which he accepted with a grave nod, muttering of lost manuscripts. As dusk fell, the great party commenced, the hall transformed into a ballroom with evergreens refreshed and candles multiplied to banish the shadows. Musicians from the village, fiddlers and pipers tuned their instruments, filling the air with lively airs. Supper was a feast of northern flavor. Haggis piped in with ceremony, neeps and tatties steaming, followed by platters of roast beef and plum pudding for those of English palate. Traditions abounded. The squire insisted upon first footing, decreeing that the first visitor across the threshold after midnight must be a dark-haired man bearing coal for warmth, salt for flavor, bread for sustenance, and whiskey for cheer, to augur prosperity. Master Simon, fair of lock, lamented his disqualification, vowing to dye his hair with soot, while Frank volunteered, his colonial dark hair fitting the bill. The party swelled with guests villagers in their Sunday best, gentry from neighboring manors, even a troop of geysers in masks and cloaks, reciting ancient rhymes for treats. Get up, good wife, and shake your feathers. Slash dinna think that we are beggars. Slash for we are bairns come out to play. Slash get up and jise our hogmanay. Dancing erupted in earnest. Scottish reels where hands linked in vigorous circles, English quadrilles with graceful bows, the romp whirling like a dervish, Julia gliding in the officer's arms. Songs rang out. Robert Burns's Auld Lang Syne, voices joining in sentimental chorus, arms linked across the room, and older ballads of hogmanay, warning against omens like spilled wine or a woman's first foot, which the squire dismissed as mere folklore, yet charming in its antiquity. Superstitions flavored the evening. No one dared take anything out of the house without bringing something in, lest luck flee. Doors were flung open at midnight to let the old year out and the new in, as bells rang from the village church, symbolizing good's triumph over evil. Master Simon contrived fireworks upon the lawn, rockets of gunpowder hissing skyward in bursts of red and gold, illuminating the frosted trees like fairy lights. As the clock neared 12, the company gathered in breathless anticipation, the squire holding his watch aloft. 10. At the stroke, bells pealed joyously, embraces and kisses exchanged amid cries of Happy New Year. Frank entered as first footer, his gifts presented with colonial flair, auguring a year of plenty. Toasts flowed like the whiskey. Lang may your lum reek. Long may your chimney smoke. And health to all, and may the new year bring peace to our hearths. The parson offered a solemn prayer for blessings, citing the Psalms on new beginnings. This is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Revelry continued deep into the night. More dancing, tales of ghostly visitations on this eve, the squire recounting an ancestor's midnight vision of a spectral herald announcing fortunes, the parson cautioning against such fancies with quotes from ecclesiastical fathers. Amid the glee, a poignant reflection stole upon us. The old year departed like a weary guest, laden with memories sweet and bitter, while the new arrived with hope's bright face, promising renewal. Chapter 5, New Year's Day. Resolutions, visits, games, and fond farewells. New Year's Day burst upon Bracebridge Hall with a sun that rose in splendor, gilding the frost-rimed trees and turning the slushy grounds to a sparkling expanse, as if nature herself heralded the rebirth of the year with a fanfare of light. The household stirred early, the air filled with the scents of fresh porridge simmering in the kitchens, laced with honey and cream to symbolize the sweetness of new beginnings. Breakfast was a leisurely affair in the parlor, where the squire presided over bowls of steaming oats, rashers of bacon, and pots of strong tea, declaring it the foundation of a prosperous year. In old Scotland, quoth he, stirring his bowl with gusto, they call it Nair Day, and naught starts it better than a hearty meal to fortify the spirit against whatever fortunes may bring. The ritual of resolutions followed, a custom the squire had instituted in his youth, drawn from the moral essays of Addison and Steele. Each member of the company inscribed their vows in his great leather-bound ledger, a tome as ancient as the hall itself, its pages yellowed with the promises of generations. The squire went first, pledging to revive yet more forgotten customs, lest the tide of modernity wash away our heritage like sand upon the shore. Master Simon, with a wink, vowed to court his widow in earnest, and if she refuse me, to swear off flirtations forever, though heaven knows how long that shall last. The officer, in a low voice, committed to seeking Julia's hand, a resolution that drew a blush from the lady and a knowing nod from the squire. Julia herself promised diligence in her music and embroidery, while the romp, giggling, resolved to be less of a tomboy and more of a lady, but only on Sundays. The parson, grave as ever, inscribed a vow to complete his treatise on ancient rites, quoting St. Augustine, "Let us leave the past behind and stretch forward to what lies ahead." I, the wandering observer, added my own modest pledge, to cherish these memories and perhaps commit them to paper, that others might glimpse the charm of old English hospitality. Church service ensued, the company walking to the village through the crisp air, the path lined with evergreens still fresh from Christmas. The parson preached on renewal from the book of Isaiah. "Behold, I make all things new," urging his flock to cast off old vices and embrace virtue, with allusions to the Magi's journey as a metaphor for life's pilgrimage. His voice echoed in the stone nave, the congregation attentive, the squire responding audibly to the prayers. His folio prayer book flourished with its seal ring glinting. Afternoon brought a flood of visits, the hall's doors thrown open in the old style of hospitality, neighbors arriving in carriages or on horseback to exchange calls and good wishes. Gifts were proffered, strenny, small tokens echoing Roman traditions, boxes of sweetmeats, embroidered handkerchiefs, and bottles of cordial. The drawing-room buzzed with conversation. Tales of the past year's events, from bountiful harvests to village scandals, interspersed with toasts of champagne, that effervescent novelty of the 19th century, its bubbles rising like hopes for the future. The squire, beaming, quoted Tennyson, "Ring out the old, ring in the new, / ring happy bells across the snow, / the year is going, let him go, / ring out the false, ring in the true." Games enlivened the gatherings, parlor amusements of Victorian vintage, such as 20 questions, where objects were guessed through cunning inquiries, the romp stumping all with a snowflake, and the minister's cat, a rhyming game that descended into hilarity as adjectives grew absurd. The minister's cat is a zany cat. Board games followed, dominoes clicked upon tables, checkers contested with strategic frowns, and chess matches where the officer checkmated the Oxonian, drawing applause. For the younger set, there was a ghost story circle, inspired by tales of Victorian seances, though tempered for the season. Master Simon spinning a yarn of a spectral first-footer who brought eternal luck, but demanded a midnight dance, his voice dropping to a whisper that sent shivers down spines. As evening approached, a long walk was proposed across the estate, the sun setting in a blaze of orange that painted the snow in rosy hues. We strolled through the park, the squire pointing out landmarks, an ancient oak where lovers carved initials, a frozen pond where skates had once glided in his youth. Reflections flowed freely, the squire musing on time's passage, quoting Burns, "Should old acquaintance be forgot / and never brought to mind." Frank shared colonial customs, where New Year's was marked by open houses and gunfire salutes. The parson invoked ecclesiastical fathers on the sanctity of new beginnings. Julia and the officer lagged behind, their conversation intimate, sealing promises under the bare branches. Dinner was a subdued yet joyful affair. Roast goose with apple sauce, symbolizing flight into the new year, puddings rich with fruits, and wines that loosened tongues for more toasts to absent friends, to enduring traditions, to the hall itself as a bastion of merriment. Stories continued, the widow recounting a hogmanay of her girlhood, with bells ringing and doors flung wide. The squire a tale of a Victorian ancestor who hosted open houses till dawn, the hall alive with dancers. The parson added learned lore from Caxton's prints, of medieval New Year's feasts where jesters ruled. As night deepened, by the fire's dying glow, fond farewells were exchanged, the season's spell waning like the Yule log's embers. I, the sojourner, felt a poignant tug at parting, these days a tapestry of joy etched upon my memory. The squire, clasping my hand, quoted Cowper, "But time to make me grieve/part steals, let's part abide." Thus ended New Year's Day, protracted in its delights, a fitting close to the revels, leaving the heart enriched with the charm of old England. If my chronicle, extended as it is, beguiles a weary hour or kindles goodwill, it has served its humble purpose. The end of From Yule to New Year, the continuation of Old Christmas by Jake Hotham.